Hey everybody, welcome to Love and Reload, the voice of the relocation industry. I'm your host, Ben Cross, and I'm so blessed and honored and excited to be here with my friend Milton Hilliard. How are you, Milton?
I'm great, my friend. How's everything?
Dude, dude, it's 75 degrees here in Dallas after Snowmageddon is over. Okay, my kids started school today, so
Okay.
I have
Okay.
some semblance of sanity. I think we
Okay.
might be getting an ice cream cone or something. Um, we're big on participation trophies over here. You just go to school,
Right.
you get an ice
Yeah.
cream
That's
cone,
that's right. That's right.
But no, man, I'm awesome. I'm awesome, dude. I'm so happy to
That's
be here with
good.
you, man. How's life treating you right now?
I can't complain. It's funny because I actually come into the office like 2 or 3 times a week, but there's no one here. It's just me, another team lead. Every once in a while you'll see one of the other senior level people. They're just so it's like a ghost town, so it's perfect. And we're really not doing that much traveling. So, life is good. My wife is working at home. She works downstairs. My
Hmm.
daughter does the virtual thing. She does go to school like off for a week, go back home for a week. So it's just back and forth. But for the most part, life is great.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Hey, and thanks so much, everybody, for joining us here. I'm seeing people trickle in right now. Go ahead and get active in the comments. The show is so much better when you are here and active. So let me know who you are, where you are, what you're doing. Give your company a shout out. Give Milton a shout out. Let me know what's up. Milton, where in the world are you right now for those who are tuning in?
So I'm in Washington, D.C., downtown.
All right.
And we didn't really get snowmageddon, so we're good to go. A little on the cool side. So I've been in downtown for years now. So whether it's the old Postal Service and now my new agency, still downtown DC, Washington, DC.
I remember I came to visit you a long time ago. I say long time, wasn't that? I mean, it was a long time
That's
ago.
probably
But
about 5 or 6 years ago, right?
yeah. And you guys were in that old that big, just
Yes.
monstrous
Yeah.
concrete building. It was like a prison for government employees. Like it looked like a maximum security correctional facility. I was like, I had to go through I had to go through the metal
Yeah.
detector.
Yeah. You got to go through the metal
I think by
detectors
the
and
time
all
I
that
got
kind of.
there, I was like
Yeah.
5 minutes late for a 30-minute meeting or something. I was like, I got muffins, and you're like, okay, great, now go. And I was like, all right, I'll do that. Okay. Anyway, man, it's so good to reconnect with you, dude. This is
Yeah,
fantastic.
man. It happens. It's all good.
Yeah, you could tell it wasn't the first time somebody had done it, but you could also tell it was like definitely a rookie move. So um, here we got some people checking in here before we get started. We got Stacy. Hey, Ben and Milton. Milton, happy to be back listening to the show live this week. What's up, super producer Stacy? Appreciate you. Tim Quirk from Western New York getting in the mix here. Cindy Salter.
Oh, yes. One of my favorites. Cindy, love you.
It's so much fun. Cindy's fantastic. I got to connect
She
with
is.
Cindy in real life down here in Texas. Hosea. What's up, Hosea? Good friend of the program. Mary Lee, checking in from Minnesota.
Okay.
Beverly Bell.
Beverly Bell, one of my favorites. Love her.
Great. That's great. Here's another amazing person,
Tanya,
Tanya.
yes, yes, absolutely.
So Tanya's saying, looking forward to today's show and hearing what Milton's been up to lately. So Milton, what you
Yeah.
been up to, man?
Well, it's funny because, you know, getting back into the reload thing and everything, it was interesting because this agency, they do a lot of international. Matter of fact, 99% of all of their relocations are international moves. This agency invests money into third world countries for them to really be able to help, for example, women, to help any kind of underprivileged situation. And so they invest money to kind of create opportunities, business opportunities for people to grow the country. So when they send like an attaché overseas, they send them there for about 2 years. And one of the things that becomes a challenge for the agency was they didn't know how to do it. So what they did was they reached out and they said, look, we need a reload guy that can make it happen. And so, that's where I came involved. They actually brought me on as a contractor. And then after that, I started to send people overseas, and in the middle of this COVID-19 challenge. So that's a challenge. That's a story all to itself.
Yeah.
But what was interesting about it is that they liked the way that I was kind of, take it by the grassroots and just let's put together the policy. I wrote the policy, and then try to really figure out the moves as far as how it works. International moves are different from domestic moves. So this was a new territory for me, but it worked out great.
The Postal Service, you were like probably 99% domestic U.S., right?
That's right. That's right.
And maybe you had a little Guam or a little Hawaii, a little Oconus.
Yeah.
Not much, probably, right?
That's right.
So Guam was as crazy as you got. It was a little Guam.
That's it. That was. I mean, it's total opposite. So, and their thing was their backbone was really leaning on the State Department to get stuff here. Their job was leaning on the State Department. I said, look, listen, you're going to pay me to do this job. Let me set it up the way it can be run. Let me make sure that all of the your vendors are vetted, that type of thing. Make sure that it's going to work. And you don't have to, just heavily depend on the State Department. So that's the transition that we're going through right now.
I'm sorry, were they running their relo through State Department?
Yes, they absolutely were. Because this agency has a relationship with USAID, okay, and USAID has a relationship with the State Department. So in essence, what was happening is they were like, look, we'll send our people through you guys. Send them overseas. State Department will charge us their little 18% markup, and that's how they got it done, right? And so State Department used their vendors, their movers, and they got it done. And so if you had a contract with State Department, you were able to move for USAID and DFC as well. So that's how it all came together.
Okay, so that makes perfect sense, and we're going to get into all sorts of questions. So if you guys have questions out there watching, please leave them in the comments. But I did want to this actually dovetails into something I wanted to ask you about as far as relocation management philosophy and vendor selection.
Yep. Okay.
And so and I'm going to try to say this: United States International Development Finance Corporation was. It's a mouthful. It's like
it is a mouthful.
That should be a field sobriety test, honestly. Like do this and say the agency name, right? Because I guarantee you everybody would know. No, but they were doing global mobility before, but obviously maybe weren't super satisfied with the outcome, or maybe just felt like it could be better in some way and augmented. What do you think that those things were that those areas where they wanted to maybe just kind of step it up a notch, and then how did that impact or influence your philosophy on how you made that happen?
Well, I think one of the challenges that this agency faced was one, they just didn't have anybody that was able to do it. And so they were reaching out to external people to kind of drive the process, get the facilitation done, get the pack out taken care of, making sure the embassy was involved to make sure that everything was going to be on the other end okay for a family that they were going to relocate. So one of those things was establishing new relationships, trying to make sure that we had a pipeline as far as information. The challenge, I think, was just trying to make sure that. So for me, one of the things, whether it's domestic or now international, my thing is to make sure that people have a good experience. Anyone that knows me, anyone's ever sat down and had a conversation with me, particularly vendors, and just like anyone else knows, I'm passionate about making sure that the service rendered is what it's supposed to be. Right. And so I spend a lot of time asking questions. Listen, tell me how this pack out is going to be different as far as this international move. Let's separate out the UAB from what's going to go into storage. They're not sending all of their goods overseas. They're only sending a portion of those goods. So what does that look like? And I would ask these questions because I wanted to make sure that the experience for our employee is going to be something that they're satisfied with.
And for everybody watching, UAB, unaccompanied baggage, I believe.
Yes, right? Thank you.
Okay, so that's like the air. That's like the air shipment. That's
like the air shipment that's going to be there with them. Absolutely, and that's part of the reason. So they didn't have anyone that could do that. So they're like, look, let's hire a contractor. And here's the funny part. I literally got another offer from U.S. Navy to come and help do their reloads. And as soon as this agency found out about it, they were like, oh, wait a minute, let's talk about it. What do we can do to make you stay? And so literally they're like, look, we're going to make you a not contract anymore, a regular government employee, and bring you on board. So I was like, okay, that's fine. So yeah, so I'm here to stay. You know,
now would the Navy have been through the DP3 program? Or
yes,
it would have been okay.
Yes, nice. Yes.
Yeah, I know a little something. Come on now. I'm not just a pretty face here, Milton, okay? I know a little something, okay? Okay. All right. I don't just match my face to my shirt to my tie. I know a little something about something, okay?
And I will tell you, the Navy was not happy that I wasn't coming, because they were like, look, we need somebody to come in here and take this by the horns. And I was like, hey, so it's all good.
It's all good. It's all good. Yeah, they could have had you. They could have, you know. Anyway, so okay, we got a bunch of people checking in here. I want to make sure we get to everybody before we get into vendor stuff as well and partnerships.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we got Stephen Meyer. What's up, household goods driver out there in Alexandria, Virginia?
Okay.
Neck of the woods. Be safe, driver. He'll be on the show with us. It's Snowvid 2021 out here. Cindy, meanwhile, she's probably getting a tan right now. It's 75 degrees.
Yes.
Snowvid, that's fantastic. Amanda checking in from sunny Phoenix.
Okay. All right.
Alan King in the house from Germany. Alan's got the longest active streak right now in Love and Relo. Speaking of Alan King checking in here, big shout out. We got to plug our sponsors too, because we also are doing our 8 weeks of giving right now. So Stacey, go ahead and throw that link down there as well. 8 weeks of giving, free wine. Register today at loveandrelo.com/community. Sponsored by the good people at First Tech Federal Credit Union. Shout out to Brian Rivers over there at First Tech doing expat finance. Go to loveandrelo.com/community. Get registered. Last week we had two winners. We had Tanya Maritini. Shout out to Tanya. Got a little rosé. And then we had Victoria McCullough. Shout out to Victoria. Hope she's watching today. So yeah, go ahead and get some wine. Alan, you're gonna win soon, man. Just hang in there, buddy. Our good friend William Wiggins.
William Wiggins, my man. All right.
Milton. Hey, shout out William also on the side, him and his wife, Allison, run a charity called Mercy Joy Ministries that helps kids in Uganda get vocational assistance. My family actually sponsors one of the children in his program as well. Is that a country that, just out of curiosity, that
what was the country again?
Uganda.
I don't think we have anyone going there yet, but stay tuned, because as the administration changes, the focus on the agents, where the countries are that they're sending, also changes. So it is highly probable that they could be sending somebody. And and it's funny because it's like a fire drill whenever they decide. I mean, they reach out and they say to me, no, we're going to send somebody. They have this many people. We need to make it happen. And how soon can you make it happen? So that's when I get on the phone and say, hey, this is what we need to do. So yeah, absolutely.
Well, if you need an attaché, I nominate William Wiggins. Not that he doesn't have good work to do here at home.
Hey, listen, that's not a problem. It's funny. I just want to I also want to give a plug for William. It's many a times that I've sat down, had that conversation about how do you do X. And one of the things that he always had was pieces of information for me, and I appreciate that. The other thing I was going to say is that, in his conversation with you on Love and Relo, he mentioned something that is very valuable, and that is the part about having a supportive wife, and I can't begin to tell you that, it's funny. My wife and I were sitting there talking. I said, yeah, I'm going to be on Love and Relo today. And she said, oh, really? And she says,
she knew what that was? She knew what that was?
She knew what that was.
Wow. All right. Nice.
And, it's so funny because, William and I have had many conversations at conferences, literally. And he'd be like, yeah, my wife is down. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And it's just, I can just appreciate the fact that he brought up the point and he talked about his wife. Because, if you don't have a support team, it doesn't work, and I can tell you, everyone on my Relo team has met my wife, Bridget, just everyone, and, they're just like, oh man, your wife is so wonderful. And I'm like, trust me, I have to live with her every day. So
she reminds me. Thank you. No, but it's, I want to say it just for a second, because it is Love and Relo, right? Obviously, Relo is easy and it's top of mind, and we all talk about it all the time. But I wanted to bring the love into it, because it's like we're more than just relocation people. We're more than just relocation managers. In fact, that's just such a small part of what we do. And I remember when I got started in my career early on, I was not very comfortable bringing my whole self to work. Right. From an early age, I was kind of I had like a supervisor position early in my career, probably maybe too early even, because I wasn't really mature enough for it. And people were always kind of trying to bring their personal, what I looked at as problems, but all the personal familial context into work, and talking about their kids and talking about their spouses and talking about their whatever. And I really didn't have time for it, to be honest with you, when I was young. I really didn't. I didn't like it, because I always felt like I was like, where's this going? Is this going to go like you need tomorrow off? Like, where are we going with this conversation? Right? But it was such a miss on my part. It was such a blind spot for me, because I didn't realize how much of that person and how much of motivation and how much this was important to them, and to me, and getting them to where I needed them to be as team members. Why do you think it's so important to even talk about your family and bring that to bear?
So because the reality behind it is that, we spend so much of our time at work. Even William would talk about the fact that, like when he was, when he had to go on deployment and things like that, and how his wife really stood up and took care of everything and was a trooper. That's the same thing. And that was the part that my wife and I were talking about. I used to have to travel for my agency quite a bit. And let me put it in perspective. So at Postal Service, we were doing, oh my goodness, probably about 15,000 processing about 15,000 travel vouchers a day. Okay, so I did relocation and travel. So imagine the volume of activity just on the travel side. And so there were so many different elements to all of that I was responsible for. And so if you're responsible for that, you may have to meet with someone, you have to talk to people, you have to talk with regional directors about processes and things like that. And it meant I had to get in a plane, be away from home. And when you have children, that's a responsibility that gets pushed to your spouse, and so if you don't have a good support system, then things start to fall, right? Yeah. What if the car breaks down? What's the process if, Lauren gets hurt? My daughter's name is Lauren. So there's just so much that if you don't have the right support system, man, you've got a problem on your hands, and there's nothing you can do, and then you got to give up something. So,
that's awesome. No, that's cool. That's cool. I've really enjoy getting to meet the families of people that I work with and understand. Cliff says it's families helping families.
It is. It really is, man. I'll tell you. And you get to. I mean, like I can remember. The team went down to really get to know our St. Louis people. So like for a Postal Service, we were down in St. Louis, and Bridget lives in St. Louis. And one of the things that was interesting was when her husband was still alive, he took us, the team out, and you begin to see how her happiness literally was tied to her husband. And tied to the satisfaction in knowing that he was there for her. And you see that interaction and you see that communication. And, I tell you, it warms your heart to know that when people come to work or when they go home, they're happy. Because if they're happy, then when they come to work, they want to come to work. They want to make a difference. So, having the family, having a support system in place, it means everything. It really does.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Talking about support systems here, we got a lot of comments here. I want to get to all your comments. Please also leave your questions for Milton. We're going to get to those in the second half of the program. But talking about support systems, and we kind of teased this before, I know that I know that you are big on relationships in this business. I know that you're big on supplier relationships in this business.
Yep.
What is your philosophy? You know, we were talking about relocation philosophy, and this is kind of one of the things I really want to touch on here.
Yeah.
What is your philosophy around supplier relationships and managing your program?
So, you know, here's the thing, you know, and I'll be fair. I want to be very honest. You know, one of the things that happened when I got into this space is I didn't know a lot. And so I asked a lot of questions. And what I found, and Cindy will chime in on this literally, because I would ask questions and it would be like, listen, you might need to have that conversation with Cindy. You might need to have that conversation with someone from GSA. And, you know, the thing that I appreciated about that was she gave you the bare, she broke it down for you. She said, look, at the end of the day, you got to make sure that you're comfortable knowing that we can get this done. And, you know, we would have countless conversations literally about how do we make it better? And let me have you talk to this person. And I talked to, I mean, literally every aspect of the relocation process on her team. And they had an answer for it. And you know what was interesting? They loved what they did. I mean, that's that whole relationship.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I met you.
No,
but here's the reason why I say that.
Yeah.
When we talk about building a relationship, right? It's about being comfortable with who the person is, right? It's also about asking some questions to kind of figure out if there's a income flow that can happen between the two. And, you know, even when we met, you're asking questions so that we could kind of figure out, hey, is there an opportunity for me here, right? Can we make a difference? Yeah. And think about that, right? That was 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Look at where we are today.
No, it's crazy.
And now we have much more confidence, right?
Yeah.
We know more about vendors in the relationship, and to make sure that if there's a problem, where does the buck stop, right? Who do I call when there's a problem? And that was the thing that I appreciate about, and I say this with all love and respect for every relocation management company that I've ever dealt with. The thing that I like most is their passion, their love for what they do, and their belief that they make a difference. And that's the part that, you know, I get excited about. You know, that was the thing that made me love relocation so well. It's that relationship, knowing that when I ask you a question, give me the honest answer. Tell me what I need to know. Help me learn to be a better relocation manager. And, you know, there's so many people that I don't even do that. I can't begin to tell you how many people I didn't do business with, but they had something to bring to the table to help me be a better person. You know, whether it was the banking, whether it was corporate housing, whether it was the van lines. I mean, just so many people trying to help. Now, yes, they were curious to see where there was going to be an income stream for me, but their willingness to give me information about every facet of, for example, you know, the UAB shipping or the shipment of household goods, all the different aspects, you know, or bundling services. So I can just say that that is what makes me feel good about the business relationship. So yeah, I'm big on that. I'm really big on that.
Let me ask you, we got a bunch of people kind of chiming in here as well here. Because I see Milton loves this too.
I do.
Beverly, everything. Cliff says, my favorite thing about Love and Real is that we get to see the real people having a genuine conversation. Ben does such a great job. Oh, thanks, Cliff. Appreciate you, man. Let me ask you along those lines, when you were talking about the RMC relationships, do you think that I want to ask you a philosophical question here.
Okay.
Do you think that it's best to have an RMC and let them pick your suppliers and contract with who they feel is best? Or do you like to direct some of your own suppliers?
I like to, so let me be fair about that. So obviously the whole concept behind the relocation management company is that they bring together, they bundle the services and say, hey, we're going to give you premier service. This is what it's going to be about, right? All right. One of the things that I felt very good about was being able to put my 50 cents in, or my 2 cents in, on who that vendor relationship was going to be. And here's the reason why I say that. When you build a relationship, like, one of the things that was a primary concern for me was that we picked who our van lines were going to be. And I'll tell you why I say that.
Tell me why, 'cause I got that moving background. I'm always curious.
So the reason for that was because the biggest touch point, one of the biggest touch points on any relocation is that van line, right? They come into someone's home, they're your first impression. And you want to make sure that first impression is a lasting impression. From the time they pick up the phone to do the walkthrough, from the time that they schedule, for the pack out, from the time that they first knock on the door, that's the relationship you want to have. And so my concern was being able to know that if I had a problem, I didn't just get to call the relocation management company. I would also be able to reach out to that van line and say, look, let me tell you what my issue is and how can we fix it. And I also appreciated, because I wanted to get to the source. And I would tell
otherwise you're calling the RMC, the RMC's,
and they're reaching out to the person and doing all this thing. And I was like, look, because there were situations where, how do I say this? We had hoarders who literally, I mean, yes, and it's amazing.
It's real. The struggle is real.
This is a real. And it's amazing to think that people can come to work and be functional in their job and yet go home every day and their place is just full of stuff. And we had people like that. That's real. And I could not fathom, I could not believe that we put people in harm's way sometimes trying to move people. So my hat goes off to every van line who's ever had to deal with that.
Every van line's had to deal with that. And it happens about once or twice a year, depending on your volume, could be more.
And I can tell you, when they sent me, when I looked at pictures of this one home, I thought to myself, you got to be kidding me.
What do you do as the HR though? What do you do though? You get that those photos. Some drivers walking around like on the low, just like snap, email. Let me step outside real quick for a smoke break, and then text and Milton like, yo, what's up? Like, this is crazy in here.
So to be fair, we've had that, and when it's a delicate situation, because one, you're trying to facilitate a move, right? You're trying to give that premier service. And yet you want to be also cordial. I mean, I had one time where the goods had like was it a roach infestation?
Roaches,
literally,
bed bugs.
Literally what they had to do was the entire container, they completely separated it from their other shipments. They said, Milton, we can't even put this next to the rest of the stuff because
we can't even put this on the boat. It's that dirty, Milton. We can't throw the boat.
It was unbelievable. But I guess what I'm just trying to say is, I appreciate that. I appreciate getting that phone call and then being able to reach out to the person that was responsible for it. One, to be able to say thank you, but two, to be able to make sure that we had a relationship where I could say, listen, I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate you reaching out to me, and I appreciate you being professional and dealing with the situation at hand. And, we got through it. We got the person relocated.
What's that conversation like though with the transferee though? Are you talking to them, or are you just like,
so obviously the relocation management company was initially talking to the transferee. But we had a situation, I mean, we've had several situations where it was just, listen, it's really bad. We had one time where they left the window open and a rodent got in and went to the bathroom everywhere. and we're just like,
I feel like they might have left the window open, because some of these people just let rodents and stuff go to the bathroom wherever they want. Like they got a pet ferret, they can't tell nothing, and they just and they said that there was a window open, but this ferret's been crapping on the carpet.
Well, long story short, this was a high-level Postal Service manager, okay, responsible for a lot of money and management and materials and business. And it was one of those things where, what do we do? And, that was a hard conversation, because I had to call him and say, they say that there's rodent feces everywhere.
Allegedly, like, it's like, sir, allegedly. I'm not saying, I've not been there. I can neither confirm nor deny.
Oh man, and then
of course they're always like, "What are you talking about? No way!" I feel like a lot of times the transferee's in denial. Like, what do you mean, rodent feces? That's potpourri. What are you talking about? Yeah.
Well, no. So okay. To be fair, a lot of times that is the case. But in this particular case, the guy was real good about it. And he said, "Look, I want to apologize. I'm going to send some people down to help clean up, and we'll work through it." And I said, "Okay, well, we'll do that." Because it was one of those things where, when you look at the hierarchy of postal managers, this guy was in the top 10. And it was just like, you got
Wow. Wow. All right, so everybody out there, Google top 10 USPS executives, put it in the thing. I'll read them, and Milton, just blink twice. Just blink twice if we got it, all right? Just kidding. Cliff saying, I feel a book coming on. Melissa Boris checking in.
I love her.
From France is saying we should have a special Love and Real episode of these war stories one of these days.
Man.
That'd be a riot. Victoria, the client I was on site with, also directed vandalizing when he uses consultants. It was nice to have direct contact when the issue comes up, for sure.
It definitely does.
Cliff's having flashbacks of his in-home estimating days. Oh my gosh. Some of these people, especially on the COD side, it's probably even worse on the COD side when you walk in some of these houses. Tanya's saying, agree that you need to have direct relationships with your supply chain, right on Milton Hilliard and +1. Jack Jampel. Jack saying, I agree, Milton. I don't believe you can provide premier service by selecting a van line off of a bid board. Yeah, relationship is everything.
Yep. And I want to just jump in real quick. Jack is a classic example of, it's many a times that I've gone to one of these conferences or these I can't think what they call them, but where like a relocation management company brings in people and they say, hey, we want you to see our operations and we want you to have kind of like a forum, right? And sharing information about how do you do different things. Jack was big on making sure that whether Jack's been in the business for several years now. And one of the things but he was open to sharing information. He was an open book, nothing closed. He was like, Milton, if you have problems with this, give me a call. Try this, and it's just, and that was the thing that made you feel good about doing your job, knowing that I can get this done. And I have people that I can reach out to. And definitely, Jack was one of those guys that would be able to say, hey, look, what do you need help with? So yeah, I just appreciate
Jack's awesome. Jack's a mentor of mine as well. He's always
absolutely
support. Appreciate you, Jack. Hey, I want to hear your questions out there for Milton. I've got a few also for him as well, but I'd love to hear your your questions about relo policy, process, philosophy. This is really cool, Milton. You're being really candid with us. I appreciate that. It's helping a lot of people, I'm sure. Shout out to Zach Stevenson coming in here. Maury Stevens staying warm up in the mitten. That's what's up. Tanya's appreciating the audience inclusivity. Trying, Tanya, trying. All about DE&I. Katie Linehan checking in from Connecticut. Janet is tuned in. Val's tuned in from H-Town. What up? Dano's here from wintry Las Vegas. Burr, what does that mean? Like 80 degrees, Dano?
That's his way of being candid about the fact that he's enjoying himself right now.
He's chilling right now. Dano, she all right? Send love out to mom. Milton's a big stickler for service, Dano's saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's got a question.
Absolutely.
What is the DP3 program? You want to answer that, or you want me to answer that?
You go ahead and answer.
DP3 program, Defense Personal Property Program. It's the military's version of relocation. It moves about 240,000 military members a year.
Yep.
Big time program. Biggest single
big
services
yes
in the world.
Yes. I was looking forward to it, man. I'll tell you, because one of the things that here at this agency, they don't relocate a lot of employees. Now they're trying to raise that number, but it just isn't, this agency doesn't move like, for example, like Postal Service doing a little over 1,000 moves. Navy, my goodness, it's
tens of thousands. I mean,
it was, and that's why they were so
40,000.
frothing at, oh man, they were frothing at the mouth for me to come. And I was just like, I'm ready. So,
you know what? They didn't come correct. What do you?
Yeah, that's all right.
Is that under NavSup? Is that under NavSup, or was that under another area?
Which one? It was, because it was actually right there at the Navy Yard. Yeah. So
was it Norfolk or?
No. Here in Washington D.C. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Maybe next time. Elizabeth saying definitely not just a pretty face. I don't know how to take that, Elizabeth, but thank you so much for stating the obvious.
Oh my goodness.
No, just kidding. We're all having fun out here. We're all friends here, which is what makes it even more fun. Good to see someone that recognizes that a superior van operator can greatly help in working through.
Oh man.
That's from the driver standpoint.
Well, it's and I want to give I'll tell you, I was always open for van lines coming in and having a conversation with me. When we were trying to figure out our household goods, I'm trying to bundle services and things like that. I appreciate the fact that, a van operator could come in and sit down and talk with me, and we could talk about what's the best move for the Postal Service. How can we bundle those services and submit that information to GSA so that we could make sure that we were doing the best job possible.
Give me an example when you say bundled services. Help me understand.
So for example, let me see. So when it was domestic and we're doing 18,000 pounds, right? Mm-hmm. Giving the what is it called, the TV package, the
armor pack or TV crating.
Yeah, the TV crating, right? So what we used to pay for was to crate everything, wooden crate for everything, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that Jeff Barber would always say is, Milton, man, listen, we got containers specifically for this. You shouldn't be paying to crate this kind of stuff. Matter of fact, you should be limiting your crating so that that's not something that you're having to pay the extra cost for. And so when you, because his point was that there's savings in this, right? If you bundle for it, then you don't have to worry about paying an extra per item cost, right? And it seemed to work out well for us. We saved money. The GSA's program that worked out great. I'm a happy camper.
Yeah, I think it's important and incumbent on us as service providers to always be thinking in terms of, from the client perspective and being an advocate for the client and thinking of these ways. I remember in DC there, I was at the Atlas convention or World Forum or whatever it was called, Atlas Forum. And I remember they had Captain Sully Sullenberger from Miracle on the Hudson, the pilot that landed the plane in the Hudson.
Oh, right.
And he was actually giving a talk. It was like one of the great talks. I remember it was like 5 years ago, maybe more now, 6-7 years ago. And he was saying, he said, innovation is changing before you're forced to change. And I think as an industry, sometimes we don't do a great job of changing ourselves. And then some new disruptor comes in and flips a table in the industry. And then we're all like, hey, you can't come here. Well, that's because we didn't do it first. Right. And so we need to always be thinking in terms of being an advocate for the client, figure out ways to innovate. For sure. Love it. I do have another question, so I'm just going to keep going with these questions. Feel free to leave questions in the comments, everybody. And I will get to your comments. But I want to ask you about relocation models.
Yep. Fixed
fee or cost plus or something else? What do you prefer?
So, I'll tell you, in the government space, there really is a challenge over what agency you fall under. Postal Service was a quasi-federal organization, so we could do the cost plus model. I like that because.
And describe cost plus for everybody out there that may not know.
So cost plus means that if whatever your cost is for the movement and shipping of the household goods, whatever their cost is for the final move, for the final trip, sorry, my phone is dropping stuff in there. All your different aspects of the cost, you're going to pay for those. Direct cost, you pay that fee. There's no markup on it. You're just going to pay whatever that fee is. Fixed fee.
And then in that case, the service provider would make their money as a commission or referral.
They make their so then the service provider makes their money off of they charge a fee for whatever that service is, and that's built into your contract. And so you can, like for example, they might say, listen, for your for all of your homeowners where there's going to be a home sale, we're going to give you $1,000 because you're going to use our financing company. You're going to use, so it's all built in, right? But the advantage was that you could really kind of look at your cost and try to manage those costs. We had a home purchase program. And so those homes came into inventory, and now it was our responsibility to figure out how do we get these homes out of inventory and sold with the least impact to the agency. Well, with fixed fee, you don't have to worry about that. Fixed fee, the RMC is taking on that, and they're building in a markup, and they're anticipating what the cost is going to be to get that home in sellable condition. And it's funny, Bridget and I, and many times the RMC, we would have conversations about how do we figure out how to sell a home because the employee didn't do what they were supposed to do, right? But getting back to the whole idea of fixed fee versus cost plus, I mean, if you're an agency that you can do the cost plus model, it works, and you're going to save the agency money. When you don't have that ability, like for example, DFC is not going to have that home purchase program. We're not going to have that ability to bring in to buy homes. Then the fixed fee that's the model that you're going to have to take. And a lot of agencies, that's what they have to do. They have to do the fixed fee because the FTR is not going to let them do anything different. So federal travel regulations.
Federal travel regulation, right, which dictates everything.
So when you have that, when you have those parameters that you have to live within, it kind of drives the business of what you're going to do. But I am a big fan of the cost plus model.
And just to understand, and please ask questions. If you got questions you're watching right now, throw them in the comments. Love to get to your questions on this. But it sounds like with the cost plus model, I'm just trying to understand because there's a lot of different naming conventions and things like this.
Sure.
To me, this sounds like a fee. To me, this sounds like a fee versus zero fee options here. Whereas the fee is like, okay, we're gonna basically, I'm just gonna use round numbers here. We're gonna tack on, a $500 fee to manage your household goods. So here's the household goods invoice, and here's our $500 line item, and that's what that is. And we're gonna tack on another, $5 a day or something for corporate housing. So here's your corporate housing bill, and here's our fee. And then boom, there you go. And so you have transparency into what the supplier is actually charging. So you can actually manage the supplier's cost down, and you can manage the relocation company's fee the way you want to manage it. It's broken out. Whereas in a zero fee model, the RMC is like, hey, we're not charging any fee. That's what they tell procurement. And then on the back end, they get a referral fee that Lord knows what that is.
That's it. That's correct.
And so you can't really manage your suppliers down or your RMC down because you don't know who's getting what. And so
you don't know who's getting what.
That's I imagine the RMC is not going to like it very much because if they have a they're not going to like necessarily having you dictate suppliers because they have agreements with the ones they have who have agreed to their fee structures on the back end.
Yes.
And if you bring in somebody else, they may not be down with that. Let's see. Jack's got a take on this, which I love. In my opinion, fixed fee is the answer for true costs across all suppliers. To remove referral fees The problem is who will be the first RMC to do so when there is still the adage that RMC charge no fees to corporate clients. Right. That's that whole zero fee. Well, it's like not going to be a zero fee actually, because there's no such thing as a free lunch. We're not running a nonprofit organization. This isn't reload.org.
That's right.
Over
That's
here.
Right.
Although that would be a great website if nobody's got it. But no, I mean, I think that's right, Jack. And I think there's a lot of relocation managers out there that don't even realize that there isn't such a thing as a zero fee program. We had Gary Connerly and Stephen John on the program talking about, how do you bring back the fee structure, right? Because the fees were negotiated out of the business by procurement, right? Because the procurement shop was to come in and get the management fee down to zero or as close to as possible, but they ended up paying it on the back end.
They pay it on the back end. That's right.
Right.
I mean, because let's be fair, right? The model for the relocation management company is to look at all the different income streams, right? And you look at all those, and that's how you figure out what your profitability is going to be. So you take that into consideration and you look at that. And so you might give in some areas, but then you're going to be very stringent in other areas. And then you're also looking at those referral fees that you're getting from your suppliers to kind of support that flow. And so that's the reason why I always, particularly on the movement of the household goods, wanted to be able to say, look, I want to be able to make sure that I know that I can hold this group of people accountable for everything for these moves if something goes wrong. So I don't want to look at those fees. I don't want to look at who you're bringing to the table. I want you to use these people right here. And it seems to work out best that way.
Yeah, and household goods is a great example because, I think there's a common theory or idea that all the movers charge the same prices, that it's all the same tariff. Well, the tariff, that 400 tariff was abolished in 2006, I want to say.
Right.
And gradually over the years, it's gotten more and more differentiated between van lines until a few years ago, they really kind of blew it up. And it got real different, But you got to think that when the RMCs are getting their extraction or their accrual on the back end, they may just say, well, we're just going to make them all the same price, and funnel business to the ones that have the lower cost, but not necessarily pass it on to the client. So anyway, this is very interesting. Janice got a question here. Please keep leaving your questions here. Bring those in, and we will get to those. Janice says, do you have a fee established that you allow your suppliers to charge?
So on our end, no. Typically what happens is we enter into a contract with them. And so we open up bids for people to bid on the contract. And so that's pretty much how we do it. I mean, I can tell you that that's what we're going to do for DFC as well. We're not going to do the 18% model. We're going to establish our own contracts and go that route. So
yeah, awesome. Cliff says, and the RMC will go to the supplier who gives them the best fee, not the best service.
Yep.
Yeah, you would think
and
so.
At the end of the day, it's service that makes the difference. It's not the best fee. It really isn't.
And it's funny, Cliff, this is one of the things that was brought up by RMCs that are actually in the know on this stuff that actually told me. They said, when the van lines raised their prices a few years ago, they're like, this is actually good for us. Because now our percentage commission on that goes up as well.
Goes up.
Right?
Goes up.
When a lot of corporations look to their relocation company to say, hey, you guys are supposed to be our procurement arm. You guys are supposed to go out there, go to market and find us the best value supplier. But actually RMCs become complicit in charging more and not charging less, which is kind of interesting. I have another question for you, Milton. This month we've really been focused on creating access to opportunity for Black professionals and global mobility.
Sure.
And one of the things, I'm really passionate about this topic. It's something that we've kind of discussed, pre-show as well. But I want to look at it from two angles. I want to look at it for creating access to opportunity for folks to be in these roles, and I want to talk about access to opportunity for minority-owned suppliers as well.
Okay.
And I want to tackle kind of both. So I guess maybe the first question I'll start with is, do you think that there is a disparity, if you will, in representation in this industry. And what are your thoughts on that?
So anyone that knows me, and Melissa, probably more so than anybody, Alonzo, Kenny Brew, anyone that knows me, Dano, Hosea, anyone that knows me knows that, the first time I went to a conference and looked around, I was really surprised. I couldn't understand how an industry that generates so much money just didn't have any people of color. It was kind of a surprise. And I just didn't understand that. And so, I had to kind of ask questions to be able to say, what did I get into, right? What is this just how it is? And what's interesting is that, you don't just end up in, well, sometimes you do end up in relocation, and then, you just deal with the hand that you have. But is it disparaging? I'm not sure if it's disparaging.
Well, a disparity, meaning like an inequality, or that there's an obvious, lack of representation.
So all I can say is this. There's definitely not many people of color in this industry. Is there an issue as far as, is it on purpose? Did they do something wrong? I don't know that that's the case. I think it's just one of those things where, say on the government side, okay, or on the corporate side, most people who end up sitting in the position that I've sat in, the position that I sit in, they back into the position, and they're like, they're just filling the job, and they're like, oh, okay, we need somebody to handle relocations, right. And they do it. Right. And so I think what happens is we don't find ourselves driven into this position where, or not driven, but we don't know of the opportunity. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I don't hold anyone accountable for that. I don't fault anyone for that. I think what we all have to do is, I can tell you that I've done my part to be fair, and definitely provide the opportunity to other people, show them that it's a career that can be fun, and to just kind of make sure that I do the best job that I can do, so that the next person that sits in this position doesn't have the same problems or challenges as far as communication, that communication network that they're out there. But like I said, I don't know that the industry has done something against me or against people of color. I just think it just happened.
So I do notice that there seems to be a lot more representation on the corporate and especially the federal side than there is on the supplier side.
Oh, absolutely.
Which kind of leads me to my next question, but I'm gonna first take a couple of comments here from see what Melissa's got to say. There are a lot of people of color are not aware of this industry and what it entails. Yeah. I think that's, a lot of people aren't aware of this industry, to be honest with you, right?
Oh yeah,
to absolutely. Your point, you kind of just fall. We all just fall. Jack will say, we all just fall into it, right? He was kind of always laughs about that. We always say we all just fall into it. Sometimes you're like the new guy at work, and you say, hey, let's stick the new person with global mobility here. This crazy thing that has every super high visibility organization goes wrong.
Absolutely,
not a great career path. Let's just stick this person with global mobility, right? But I'd love to see more on the supplier side. Let's see what Tanya says. Tanya's actually got a question here too for you. How do we bring more people of color into our industry? What action can we all take to create a more diverse community?
So, here's the thing. As an agency, so we don't find out about these types of positions because normally we don't advertise for them. Okay. from a corporate perspective or for a government agency perspective, we don't normally advertise for these jobs. Like you might see something on Worldwide ERC, when they have the job postings out there. But it's a very small, close-knit organization as far as, people find out that an opening is coming available, and they know somebody and they tell them about that job. And so the next thing you know, that job is filled. And so there's not a lot of outward reaching out. So to Tanya's
it's such
point,
a unique set of skills as well.
It is.
To be a global
Absolutely.
mobility manager, you got to know tax, you got to know logistics, you got to know immigration, you got to know like some wild stuff,
You really do. And so what I think has to happen to kind of level that playing field is really just create the opportunity, advertise for it by way of, when I was in school, and I went to Howard University, I went to an HBCU, and my degree was in accounting. And I had an opportunity to go work for the Port Authority of New York, and do an intern program there, co-op program. And it was a 2-year program. And, they came out and they were specifically looking for, to add some color. Okay. And so they were going to HBCUs to bring in people with specific skills, accounting skills or management skills. And what I found was interesting was that they went out to the HBCU schools and they recruited. So I would encourage people to consider going through that approach to try to bring in talent. And again, the relocation job, when it comes open, probably you're not hiring for that right out of school, right? Because as you said, you've got to have some skills. I mean, there's got to be some managerial skills. There's got to be some understanding of you've got to be able to look at a spreadsheet and kind of figure out what has to happen. You got to be able to be process driven, and you got to be detail oriented. And there's no set degree for that. But what I would say is that if we go to the institutions that are creating the talent, be it an HBCU or be it an Ivy League college, but if we make the commitment to say we're going to go to the HBCU and we're going to do a certain percentage and hire, then the reality is that you're going to get talent to change, and you're going to see people of color in positions that they weren't normally be in. So I would encourage people to do that.
Well, great example, right? So do we, if you lack diversity in our industry, do we lack diversity in our companies? Do we have diverse hiring practices? And then, okay, now we're tabling now at HBCUs and we're getting the best and brightest from HBCUs to come into our companies. And then it's a question of mentoring and creating access to promotions and creating access to those kind of high potential projects that get people to kind of FaceTime and stuff like that we talk about. And that's one of the things actually Valencia Culbert's going to talk about from Grable. She's going to be on this week. She's
cool.
A tremendous DE&I expert, right? And it's not just about diversity, it's about inclusion and equity and making people feel.
I love Grable.
Yeah, great organization. She's great as well. So I'm super excited to hear about that as well. But now, and actually, you know what, I'm going to point back at suppliers because, recruiting from HBCUs is something companies can do and HR departments can do. Will those people land in mobility? Who knows? By the time they get to mobility, they probably need a certain amount of skill sets already, right?
Absolutely.
So they come in more as maybe an HR generalist or somebody with an international business degree. But from a supplier side, 100% of what we do as a supplier is global mobility, is Relo. And so what are we doing? And I'm actually going to kind of segue this into the second question, which is to say, how do we create more opportunity for diverse companies, for companies who are owned for certified disadvantaged, businesses, for minority businesses, MPs, women-owned businesses, Black-owned businesses. What are your thoughts on that, Milton?
So one of the ways that I'll tell you what the Postal Service does, and I'll tell you what some agencies have dibbled and dabbled in this. It really is a commitment from management to be able to say, look, we're going to invest so much in women-owned businesses. we're going to invest so much in minority-owned businesses, not necessarily people of color, but minority businesses, right? And some of the contracts that contracting officers literally have a directive that basically says, so many of your contracts, 10% of your contracts have to be minority based, right? And if we do that, then at least we're giving an opportunity to people to be able to present themselves, provide a premier service, and get paid for that service. So I think the way the industry and particularly vendors can be part of that is to make the commitment and then execute on that commitment as far as deciding that, yeah, we're going to do women-owned business. One of the things that I like about this organization that I work for now is that's exactly what they do. They invest in, they make sure that they're investing in women-owned businesses in, say, for example, Indonesia.
Right.
And then they decide we're going to put $2 million into this product or into this process or into this industry,
Right.
And they'll be able to fund it and create revenue for themselves and generate revenue for themselves. So it's really a commitment. It's being able to put your money where your mouth is.
Well, and that's I think what a lot of people would say when I talk to Black-owned business owners in this space. They say everybody's talking, Black Lives Matter happens, right? Everybody's talking about, how do we create diversity? How do we, we stand together? All this messaging of solidarity and support. But these Black business owners aren't necessarily seeing it translate into revenue and opportunity. What is that disconnect, Milton?
Because, talk is cheap. It doesn't cost you anything,
Tell me about it. I do a talk show every day.
And so I get it. But for the small minority business, here's the reality behind it. At the end of the day, people want to provide you with, they want to make money. But they want to do something that they love doing. And I'll use as an example, Hosea, for example. Mm-hmm. I remember meeting him, my goodness, wow, 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. And his biggest challenge was not getting an opportunity, right? No. His challenge was, like the big, like say, for example, RMCs. They were like, hey, we already got our supplier. So, they weren't having that conversation with him. Right. Yeah. And so his dedication in deciding, I'm going to do this on my own and I'm going to keep pressing on, keep having conversations with people, create a niche for myself, and then allow people to invest in me. Right. Mm-hmm. And it deals with partnerships, I think. If companies don't want to commit to dealing with minority-owned businesses, create a partnership, but document it. And that way we have an accountability associated with it. So for example, if we say that we're going to put 10% into minority-owned businesses, right, then let's advertise the fact that, yeah, we also have 10% of our contracts with minority-owned businesses. Because the accountability is how we hold people accountable for making sure that they do what they say they're going to do. Mm-hmm. And that's where we get the disconnect. We talk about it, but then we don't do it. We say, oh, well, we're working on it. I mean, how long did it take Hosea to get up and running?
Yeah.
I mean, how many no's did he have to deal with? I mean,
and even, I talked to Hosea too, and it's like, and I talked to, Brian Brooks from EU Ward was on the program on Friday, right? The oldest Black-owned business in the United States, happens to be a moving company out of Columbus, Ohio. Shout out to Brian Brooks, 140 years, but one of the things that he cited to me, one of the statistics that he found, it was actually written about an article about his company actually that I read, was 49% of white-owned businesses who go to a bank for funding, 49% get the full funding that they're looking for. 38% of Asian businesses, 35% of Hispanic and Latino businesses get the full funding they're searching for. 31% of Black-owned businesses get the full funding that they're searching for. And access to capital is also almost as important to access to opportunity. Because if Milton comes along and says, hey, Black-owned moving company, I want to support you and I want to give you a $2 million contract to move a bunch of people for me. That's super. But now Milton's not going to pay me until 60 days late. So I got to float that. I got to
figure out how to make that happen.
The government. I got to float that, with capital. So I go to a bank, and if I have a 31% chance of getting the money I need to actually be able to support that contract, so there's so many things here at play. Access to opportunity, there's access to capital.
It really is.
There's so many things, and I guess I'm bringing this conversation up, and people might get tired of me talking about it because we've been talking about it all month. We're going to keep talking about it for another week this week, but I just want people to understand the nuances and the complexity and the layers at work here.
It really, you touch on a good point, because the reality is that this is where that accountability comes into play. Okay. Those numbers that he talked about, those are real numbers. Mm-hmm. Why is it that 49% of, say, for example, non-people of color are getting what they want as far as full funding? And then yet, here he comes along and only 39% of the people are getting, or 30% of it. What's the difference? Right?
Because you're walking into that bank and you're sitting across from a loan officer and you're wearing your best suit and you're sitting across from them and you're trying to, and they basically look at you, and they have algorithms about your credit worthiness and all sorts of stuff. But at the end of the day, there's a reason you come and sit down at the desk with that person and look across the table from them. And what are they seeing in my white skin that's different than what they're seeing in the person of color, And so I think we have to be honest about that.
Yeah. And, it's an unfortunate reality. It takes time to change that reality, or that perception of it. But, that's where we have to keep pressing on, and we have to hold people accountable and be able to identify the real numbers. I mean, his numbers.
The real numbers. That's a good point, because we can all say we do, but how do we really audit against that? And how do you, as a client, because inevitably you're going to send an RFP and I'm going to fill it out, and you're going to say, what's your supplier diversity plan? And I'm like, I spend 20% with Black-owned companies. I spend this with that. I spend this. But how do you really validate that I did what I said I'm going to do?
So there's a couple of things that we would use. So, for example, as the company looking at the company, so like for a business or whatever, I do visitations. I want to talk, Cindy, Melissa, everybody will tell you, I don't want to just talk to the sales guy, right? I want to talk.
Hey, what's wrong with the sales guy, Milton?
It's nothing. It's nothing wrong with that. But the thing about it is, sitting in the position that I'm sitting in, knowing that I'm probably the only guy in the room that's the same color as me, means that I want to make sure that you're being fair, right? I want to make sure, but fair is not the right word. I want to make sure that we're being equitable in ensuring that we're going to get good service, and that everybody along in that food chain, the counselors, the van lines, even the people in your accounting department, right? I can't begin to tell you. I mean, I literally did the site visits myself because I wanted to get a good feeling for the entire life cycle of an organization. And like when I went out to Grable, or when I went out to all the different entities that I looked at, my thing was to make sure that what I see is fair and equitable for everybody. I'm looking, where's the rest of the people of color? Where are the opportunity, men, women, where are they? I want to see just, and it wasn't because I was trying to be unfair. What I was just trying to do is make sure that there was opportunity. And you see opportunity in people by really seeing, you got to see firsthand. And that's just how I did it. So
yeah. Interesting. We got some great comments here. Valencia commenting here, William Wiggins agreed the industry also has to be appealing. To William's comment, I fell into reload through relationships as if people of color is going to increase in our industry, will have to be on purpose in hiring practices. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. William was the guy that put you on over there at, what was the, oh gosh, I forgot the agency. Was it TSA or was it EPA? Let me know.
I thought it was Homeland Security, but I remember him. I saw his Love and Reload conversation.
I wonder. I mean, I wonder if that was a black guy or a white guy, because I remember the story. He never told me. I just wonder, if I just feel like we have to be intentional about it. And I had this conversation with all my, my folks. I had this conversation, and they're like, really? But like, why don't we just look at who the most qualified person is? And it's like, because, like that, but that's overlooking, I think, many, many years. And I won't even talk about the past. I'll talk about the present. That's overlooking so much systemic inequality, because the people's resume oftentimes doesn't even reflect their aptitude because they weren't given opportunities along the way.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
So so I think, Elizabeth says Carver Bank is doing a lot to help people of color have access to capital. Interesting.
Okay.
You're watching this, Carver Bank, check them out. Victoria McCullough, when companies say they bring on minority businesses, questions should be percent of business they give them. Also commit to helping them grow and succeed.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's accountability, to make sure that they're doing what they say they're going to do. And I will say that, a lot of times the contract officer would come to me and say, listen, it's not a mandate unless you want it to be in there. And so a lot of times we would have that conversation to be able to say, look, let's make sure that it's in there because that's the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, yes, I get the part about, you bring up a good point about, let's just pick the most qualified person, right? But I'll give you the best example I know of, myself. Mm. Okay. I didn't know the first thing about relocation before I stepped into this. Mm. But I'll tell you what I do know. I'm a big person on service. I'm passionate about making a difference. Mm. And I try to create an environment where people want to work with me to make a difference. And I promote. I believe in mentoring. I believe in being humble. And so when I look at those qualities, I wasn't the most qualified for the job, but I was a change maker. I got the job in relocation because I had worked on other projects and I got them done on time or ahead of schedule, under budget, and I saved the agency money. And so they looked at it from a business model and they said, you know what? He doesn't know anything about relocation. He didn't even know. I mean, I didn't even know about travel, but I knew how to look at numbers. I knew how to look at a spreadsheet.
That's right. You were an accountant. That's right.
I'm an accountant by profession. And my track record spoke for me. And I was willing to, I'll be the first person to say, I don't know how to do this. Tell me how to do it. And I'm not going to tell you how to do something that you already know how to do. I'm willing to say, teach me how you do it. And so that I can learn how to do it the way you do it. And then along the way that I'm learning, if I can look at your process and say, hey, listen, there's 4 steps that you take to get to that. If we can do it in 2 steps, would that not make sense to make it a better process in doing that?
Yeah.
And, I give you an example. A lot of RMCs have a model, a cycle, a process that they go through from initiations all the way to closing out that file. Yeah. And for an agency to plug into it, they really have to come to the table and say, hey, this is what we want to do. And then the RMC says, okay, here's how our process works. You'll put in your information here, we'll put it through our system, and then everything will work and it'll flow. And, I had to look at that and say, oh, okay, I see how that works. So let me bring to the table the Postal Service process or DFC process, and let's figure out how they can work together. And if that works, great. But if we can eliminate some of those steps, even better.
Well, and what I like about what you're saying too is, I mean, yes, you're a diverse candidate, racially diverse, but you're also a diverse candidate from a skill set standpoint, because you were an accountant, you weren't a global mobility standpoint person. And a lot of times we see these global mobility roles posted, and we want to hire global mobility people because, let's be honest, it's a pretty funky job with a lot of moving parts that we're trying to figure out all the stuff and everything. So a lot of times we don't have the patience necessary to train people and give people, the opportunity to learn and grow. But you brought that accounting discipline, like you say, can look at numbers, because I'll be honest with you, when I deal with a lot of global mobility professionals, they're not super numbers oriented. Nope. They don't really know where the money's going. They don't really know what they're actually spending for services. And they're just like, oh, my RMC handles it, must be okay. They show me 98% satisfaction scores. Everything must be fine.
There you go.
And then bad things happen. So this, I love what you're talking about here. This is great. People are loving this conversation. I can tell right now. Thanks to everybody that's watching. Hit that like button if you haven't already done so. Throw a little heart out there to DC for Milton. We're over time.
I apologize.
No, dude, please. I love the way you think. I could talk to you forever. I can't wait till COVID's over and we can.
I know it's killing me.
Have a burger and chop it up, man. But I wanted to, we don't have time for the top 5, man. You did,
That's all right. That's all right. That's all right.
A little bit. I want to just give you kind of an opportunity though for a final thought or a final word. Anything you'd like to close us out with?
Yeah, I will say this. One, I want to thank you for this opportunity, and I want to just commend you for. Ben, I remember when I met you, man, 5 years ago, and I will tell you, to see the transition from then, to today, I would say that everyone that has hired you is probably saying to themselves today, man, I never knew that he would be where he is today. And I'll say that for this reason. I watch people when we go to conferences and things like that, or when they're talking about on panels and things, and they'll say stuff like, I really think one day I'll be working for him, like they're subordinate. And the next thing say, I'll be working for them. Ben, you're one of those guys who saw the big picture. And I want to commend you for that. Because, and even being able to be in this space, to have the conversations, to have the hard conversations that we're having, it's a great platform. And I want to thank you for that. For the people that have called in for the day, I want to say thank you. I'll tell you that the one thing that makes me love relocation is the people. I could have gone into, back into the government and do just straight accounting. I could have done it and had job offers for that. And my wife would say, but you don't really like that. That's not you. And she was right. I love this space because we make a difference.
That's right.
And I love the vendors. I love the RMCs. I have absolutely nothing to say. I want to sing their praise because we all have a job to do. And we want to make sure that people get to where they need to get to. We do have to hold people accountable. And you know what? Bad things happen to everybody, and everyone makes mistakes. But our answer to the mistake is, how do we recover? What are we going to do to make sure that this doesn't happen again? And I will tell you that there are some really good people who know how to answer that question, people like yourself. We just, as a community, we make a difference. We're going to make it better with people like you at the helm. And man, I just want you to know I appreciate everything that you're doing. Absolutely.
Milton, you touched my heart, man. You blessed me so much. Thank you so much for saying that. That means the world to me, dude. And I think so highly of you, and that means even more. Such a good guy. So I'm so happy you're here today. Thank you so much for saying all these wonderful things. Thank you so much for being here. Anyway, that's such a blessing, man. I'm getting kind of emotional here. Hey, everybody that tuned in today, thank you for tuning in. You made it better because you were here. Thank you for getting active in the comments. I appreciate you all. Feel free, again, if you haven't done it, hit that like button, throw a little heart out there to Milton for the love. And thanks, everybody. Appreciate y'all so much. Tune in for Valencia Culbreth. We got a great lineup this week as well. So thanks, everybody, for being here. And Milton, again, thanks so much.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Take care, everybody.